Misty doesn't know yet. So, hello, this is the thing about cars. I'm your host, Mickey Desai, along with my other co-host, Misty. How are you doing, Misty?
Well, as I said, it is damp, it is moist. We had a thunderstorm in the Netherlands today, which was really fun.
Is that even possible? Can it thunderstorm in the Netherlands?
Well, I hope it was thunderstorming. Otherwise, I'm not quite sure why that triple pane 3 meter wide sliding glass door I have was rattling.
Ugh. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Our our guest for today is Richard Prince. Richard, how are you, sir?
I am excellent. Thank you, Mickey.
Excellent. We have been corresponding for a while, trying to get this quick interview set up. Well, this is our first time actually meeting, but we were connected with each other because of some photography you did for a very special Corvette book. Isn't that right?
Yes, sir. Yes. I last year published a complete 70-year history of Corvette, book that I'd worked on for about a year. And I must say, I've actually done about around half the photography in the book because the book covers the full 70-year history of the car.
Hmm.
Uh, Obviously, a lot of the early decades predate me, I'm happy to say. So I relied on the GM Media Archive for the earlier materials.
Very cool. The book is beautiful, by the way. I have a copy of it, and I've already moved it to my new house, so I can't show it off to Misty. But it's this one of these great books that we got from Quarto Publishing. Our friends at Quarto Publishing send that to us, and that's how this whole conversation got started. Steve, why Corvettes?
It's funny that I assume you edit these, right?
Yes,
Okay, you called me Steve, and
I I did. I
you
did. My
did.
God.
And
Mickey.
97% of the time when people call me by my wrong name, they call me Steve.
I
It's
I I know
that is a
exact
true story.
I know exactly why I called you Steve. It's because our contact at Quarto is named Steve.
Exactly. Steve
Yeah,
Roth, the publicist.
yeah, exactly. He's a wonderful person. But okay, we will edit that out. So, Richard, why Corvettes?
Well, I fell in love with them as a child. My first recollection of um, early childhood involves a project car that Hot Rod Magazine was working on. It was a 67 Corvette, and my sister actually bought a copy of that magazine. And I looked through it. I was already car aware, and it was the uh, a full page photo of that 67 Corvette that really drove my passion for the cars. I looked at that. This was well before I was able to drive. Uh, Too young to have a license, but that motivated me. We were actually on a family trip to California, and I was committed immediately that when we got back home to New York, I was going to find a job, find a way to make money, and start saving my money so I could buy one of those, a mid-year, a C2 Corvette,
Hmm.
immediately. So that's really what engendered the passion initially. And it's been a consistent thread throughout my life, both as a hobby and as a vocation in one way or another.
Yeah, it's just amazing. It's an amazing car, and I've always wanted one, and I've never been able to afford one.
Yeah, the closest I ever got was dating a guy who had one.
Really?
Yeah. He also had Firebirds, but he also had a Stingray. Yeah, I find it interesting, and I think that seems to be a really common thread with most of us, quote unquote, gearheads. It all started before we were legally allowed to drive or could drive or even reach the pedals.
That's true. For a lot of people, it's the environment they grow up in. So they grow up in a car household, and if their parents or their uncle, their grandfather, whoever was a Firebird or Pontiac guy, they become Pontiac people.
Yep.
Ironically, uh, my father is a devoted Mopar enthusiast, and ever since he gave up his Packard, 60 some odd years ago, it's been nothing but Dodge, Plymouth, Chrysler products, and I do love them. I actually have a deep appreciation for all kinds of cars. Just this morning, my wife and I participated in a road rally here on Long Island with the Triumph Club in one of our TR6s. So we've got an eclectic collection and eclectic interests, but the one constant for me my entire life has been Corvettes.
Yeah. I grew up, my granddad was a mechanic in a little town in North Georgia, and he only drove Opals, which was very odd. But he was also a top GM Chrysler man, and my uncle, who just recently passed away, was probably one of the top GM automatic transmission mans in the state of Georgia.
Wow.
So
That's neat.
it's yeah, it's I mean I like I said I grew up in a garage, and you know, it's if you listen to any of our previous podcasts, you will, you know, I slag off on Fords all the time.
It's true. We give Ford a
It,
hard time.
it's a no, I give Ford a hard
That's
time. It's a
yeah,
constant. It's
right.
a constant. It's you know, it's
I
kind of who I am.
Ford has built some really special cars over the years, or has been involved. Obviously, Shelby Cobras is an example, or Panteras with providing engines for some really special cars.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate the Fords as well. It's sort of easy to pick on the Mustang drivers crashing, endless videos of that, and so on and so forth. And
Yeah.
I've only owned one Ford in my entire life, and it was a little bit problematic, but I do
Same.
appreciate the beautiful cars that they've built, particularly the Mustangs, the early Mustangs. I dig the fastbacks, and of course, if you don't love a Cobra, no matter where you pack in life, if you don't love a Cobra, you
Yeah.
need maybe some emotional support or some sort of therapy, because those are, you know, obviously super incredible cars by any measure.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
even a broken clock is right twice a day. Yes.
Get it
Is
in.
is it really a, you know, thing about cars episode if I can't get a zinger in on
That's
Ford?
hilarious.
I
Richard,
try.
so begs the next question for me is then what is currently in your garage?
Oh boy. You know, you have too many cars and you have to pause for a moment to think about that.
Oh wow. First world problem, man.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, we're blessed. I'm super grateful to own the cars that we own and to have the space for them. We've got a 1966 Corvette, a no option other than the largest, most powerful engine one could buy in 66. That's a completely unrestored car that we've owned for a long, long time. It's an L72, 450 horse, 427. It's got original paint, interior. A 66 coupe that's at the opposite end of the extreme. It's a base engine car with most of the options that could be had in 66: power steering, brakes, windows, tele column, teakwood wheel, air conditioning, knockoff wheels. A 67 that we bought just a couple of years ago from the original owner's widow. That is a fully loaded, air conditioned 67 convertible with 22,000 and some odd miles. It was,
What? Oh
yeah,
my
it's crazy. It's
God.
a crazy story. It was parked in 71 and never moved again until we got it going.
My God, that's
mm,
crazy. Misty's
Yeah.
over. I don't know if you can see us, but Misty's over there fanning herself with all this.
just like be still my beating heart.
Yeah,
Oh
it was.
my.
We weren't looking for another car. Didn't need another car, but a friend of mine crossed paths with it
But
in.
this other car needed you.
Well, they find us.
It's true.
It was in Lake Placid, Florida, and it is the only car I've ever bought in my whole life, sight unseen. I saw some photos, and my friend looked at it, but uh, I got the phone call the day before I was leaving for a WEC race at Spa in Belgium, and I just didn't have time to go to Florida. Had a good feeling about the car, and we pulled the trigger, and it is a good car. It
Yeah.
needs a lot of work because it's sat for so long,
Mm.
but it's super original and an interesting car. And the final Corvette is a 69 427 tri-power car.
Wow.
That's another unusual story. My wife was on the phone with a Triumph restorer, a Triumph specialist, and somehow Corvette got mentioned, and he said, "Oh, I've got an old Corvette," and she asked him what it is, and he said just a few words about it, and she pretty much fell off her chair and
Yeah, don't
immediately
blame her.
said, "If you're ever interested in selling that car,"
Yeah.
and he had bought it from the original owner's family. The original owner was a childhood friend of his, and that car never left the town it was sold in. It was sold at Quigley Chevrolet in Bally, Pennsylvania, and
Wow.
it's a loaded Riverside Gold 427 coupe that when we bought it, it had 8,850 miles from new. I just drove that yesterday and it now has 8,875 miles. So I've added 75 miles I'm sorry, 25 miles in the time we've owned it. And,
Good Lord.
yeah, that's the Corvettes. We've got a 69 RSSS Camaro that
Hmm.
I bought when I was in graduate school in Los Angeles. That was a Van Nuys built car. It had never left the Los Angeles area until I committed the indignity of bringing it back to New York with me. And it's just a super sweet car. It's a no rust, original sheet metal RSSS with a lot of options. And we've got a 1991 Alfa Romeo Spider Veloce. That's a
Pretty.
low mileage, all original car. That car was bought new by my father-in-law, and we're the current caretakers for it. That will go to my son when he's out of college and has a place to keep it and the time and the space to give it the love that it deserves. And the TR6 we drove this morning is a beautiful car, 71, that was also a California car most of its life. No rust, no accident. Car with pretty much the only options that you could get in those cars those years. It's got an overdrive transmission and a hard top and a factory radio. And it's more fun than you can imagine from about 95 horsepower. It's like driving an oversized go-kart. Super, super sweet car. And we both love it. My wife and I absolutely adore that car. You just get so mechanically engaged with it. You feel every gear change, you feel every axle rotation. It's really, really sweet. And
Thank you.
final
This is
car is she bought one
why.
more TR6 a few weeks ago
Uh-huh.
Wow.
because nobody really can be happy in this life with just one TR6. So
I keep saying the same thing about the Miata or the
yeah,
MX-5.
exactly. So
That's what I have. I have a 2016.
super fun.
Ah, best car
It's
ever.
probably the best fun value in the entire car universe.
Uh-huh.
See, see. So
All right.
you
Yeah, go ahead,
oh,
Misty.
well, I was gonna say you were talking about going to Spa in Belgium, which is actually not too far from my house. Well, it's a couple hours from my house for a WEC. Because I'm sitting here and I'm looking at your pictures and I'm just like, I just want all of these beautiful cars. I'm just like, because I mean, I'm one of it's me and Tim, the trivia czar, who are insane Formula One fans.
Yes, both of them are. Yes.
So and I think it was last year. My husband and I were taking a trip to Luxembourg, and he just took a side trip to Spa, and I was just I didn't get in, but I was sitting at the fence just watching the cars go round and round, and I was like, I'm in my happy place. I'm in my happy place.
You should
So
find a way to get to an F1 race at one of the historic tracks like Spa.
Hmm.
It's
Spa,
unbelievable experience and worth whatever. It's super expensive now, ridiculous
no,
expensive, but even if
you
you just do it
will.
once, it's worth it.
Yeah,
We're
you will literally not believe this. I live about 35 kilometers from Zandvoort, right?
Yeah.
It would actually be cheaper for me to go to Spa than Zandvoort
wow. That's
because the
hilarious.
ticket prices are absolutely insane. But
Well,
Spa is on my bucket list of tracks.
if our dreams come true and we can turn ourselves into, something more of a television production for the thing about cars, which by the way, Misty, we are working on that.
I know. I've got
Yeah.
my assignment.
Oh yeah,
Italy.
you do have your assignment. Awesome. Yes. So I've challenged the entire gang to come up with a way to get a 3 to 5 minute segment made of their choosing, so they can go out and film something related to the things we talk about on the show. But if we do that, then there's no reason, with press passes that we shouldn't be able to get into one of these shows at some point, even if it would be expensive. We need to work very hard to make that happen.
I will take one for the team and go to Spa. You can just imagine the sacrifice. I mean, see,
I,
this is how much I love this podcast.
you are the
I'm
woman for the job. That
willing
is
to
true.
sacrifice. I'm willing to sacrifice. So,
Well, there's a race at Spa this weekend, but you're 6 hours ahead, or it is in that part of Belgium. So I think it's over now. You just missed it.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm
Right.
hanging out today waiting for Miami.
Okay.
So that was
Yeah.
interesting. What is the most, I mean, yeah, I guess besides the Corvettes, I mean, we all love Corvettes, and I don't, there's two people I never trust in this world, and that's people that don't like cheese and people that don't like Corvettes.
Ha!
I mean, I'm pretty simple. I'm a simple girl. I'm from Northeast Georgia. Um, I'm from Raven County, but besides the Corvette, what is the most? Which car have you photographed that just made your heart go pitter patter, pitter patter, pitter patter, pitter patter?
Oh boy. Well, I had the privilege to photograph a 1962 Ferrari GTO on
Hmm.
a couple of occasions. Most recently, about 2 years ago. Well, it feels like 2 years ago. Maybe it was post-pandemic, 2 or 3 years ago. And that's obviously an iconic, incredible car that most people don't have an opportunity to get up close and personal with. And the particular car that I photographed is the only unrestored example remaining of the 36 that were
Nice.
built. That car was on Long Island for many, many years. The Unfortunately, the owner passed away not that long ago.
Hmm.
A man named Jim McNeil, and I don't know where the car ended up, but he bought that car, if I recall correctly, in 1966, and he loved it and maintained it and adored it for all those many years. And I first crossed paths with that. Oh my gosh, 30 that particular car about 35 years ago. My wife and I owned and operated a restoration shop, and Mr. McNeil was vintage racing that car up until that point. This would be the mid late 80s, when the value was escalating pretty rapidly. And of course, I don't recall exactly, but at that point, the car, maybe it went from a million or $1.5 million car to a $3 million car. And he suddenly was nervous about putting it out on a track. So I owned a car at the time that had been raced since new, a Corvette, that had a long storied history. And he tried a little bit to talk me out of that car because he was looking for a car with early race history that wasn't nearly as valuable as his Ferrari. And anyway, that's how we first met. But that one comes to mind immediately as a really, really special car that I've had the opportunity to photograph. And that's just one of many. I've over the past 30 plus years had really incredible opportunity. I've been blessed to be able to photograph um, some of the world's most iconic cars, and cars with really, really special backstories, really emotional stories. And of course, a lot of my work in recent decades has been in the racing world, particularly the sports car racing world. So that's provided tremendous opportunities. And I do new car photography as well, primarily for General
Hmm.
Motors, for Chevrolet and Cadillac. I've done quite a lot for Chrysler Corporation and various other car companies. So that's exciting. It's exciting to photograph future product, brand new cars before they've been unveiled and introduced. That's always very
Yeah.
satisfying as well.
So my last formal question for you here, I think, is for your photography, what do you shoot? Like, what hardware do you use to get the pictures? And is there a secret to taking a good car picture?
Uh, well, the hardware is pretty easy. Most of my work is done with Canon equipment. I recently switched to mirrorless, so I've got R3 bodies, and I've got almost every lens they've made, from fisheye and 14 millimeter super wide up until 600 millimeter.
Uh,
At least one of every long lens, from a 600 down, of 600, 500, 400, 300. At different points in my career, I've had to ship equipment around the world, typically with teams on the team transporters. So uh, I'd, for example, be in Montreal for the Formula One race there, and then I'd leave straight from Montreal and fly to Paris for the 24 hours of Le Mans, because they were back to back. So I'd have one or two cases of equipment that went to France. I'd have one or two cases of equipment on the Ferrari transporter for the Ferrari Challenge races. Anyway, but to answer your question, Canon 35 millimeter mirrorless now, and I also have a Hasselblad medium format system that I use for special occasions.
the Hasselblad is not digital, though, is it?
It is. I did have a
Oh,
Hasselblad film system, and I sold that quite a few years ago, and then now have a Hasselblad digital system. But it's too slow to use for race photography, and so anything that requires speed and rapid movement, I use the Canon R3s for.
yep. I'm Richard. You're giving me a serious case of envy on multiple levels, not only with the cars but with the camera
Right?
equipment. Yeah.
Right.
Um,
Oh, I just want to say, Richard, if you ever find yourself in the Netherlands, let me know because like my best friend has this gorgeous mint green Fiat 500 and we all and her and I have matching mint green 50s vintage style dresses. So if you wanted to do a more,
Pin up,
every day, yeah, something like
That
that,
sounds like fun.
you know.
Misty. A Fiat 500 can't hold a candle to a Corvette.
Well, I know. Well, not as far as raw power,
Hmm.
but it is so adorable.
Yeah, I dig them too. They're
I
cute.
mean, I,
Cinco cinquenta.
I I love Midge, not to the extreme that I love Claudette. Claudette is my MX-5. It is the soul red MX-5, and my best friend, her car is the mint green Fiat 500 convertible with the nice cream tan interior, and her name is Midge.
A
You know,
long time ago, I owned a Subaru branded version of the Fiat 500. There was a license agreement between Subaru and Fiat for Subaru to basically produce the 500 for sale in certain markets. And I don't know how it ended up in the USA, but I ended up with one of those cars, and it was super fun. It's like the Triumph. It's sort of a something you almost put on like you're wearing a comfortable sweater, and you feel every single aspect of the car when you're driving it. So I appreciate that, the 500s. I do get to Amsterdam typically just to connect. I'll be going to the Middle East at the end of the year for the WEC race in Bahrain, and we'll connect through the Netherlands.
Schiphol is a nice airport, I have to say.
It is. Yep.
All
The
right.
whole country's nice, beautiful country.
Yeah.
It is
Where are
in
we going next year, Misty? Where we're going? We're meeting you in Europe for what?
Paris, the car show in Paris, and I told everyone was like, "Oh," I was like, "Dude, fly into Schiphol, and then it's what 70 euros round trip if you plan it right with the high speed train from Amsterdam to Paris. You get to see some of the country, and then it's literally planes, trains, and automobiles."
I can't wait. I hope we can make that happen. That would be another dream come true for us. But as much as I want this talk to continue forever, Richard, I've got to close it and ask you our standard questions for our guests. The first one you've already sort of answered. The question was, what's your dream car?
Yeah, that's like asking what's your favorite child.
Yeah,
All things considered, I'll say the C2 Corvette, the mid-year Corvettes, 1963 through 7, and of those years, the 63 split window and the 67 big blocks are longtime favorites with most collectors. The model year 66 is my favorite if I had to pick one favorite. Yeah, I just
yeah.
love the cars. The styling to me is as close to perfect as automotive styling can be, and timeless. It just keeps looking better and better as time passes. And though they're crude by modern standards, like anything made 50 or 60 years ago, they are entirely drivable and usable. I would not hesitate to get in the car and drive it across the country. You have features like power windows and air conditioning and comfortable cruising. They're weather sealed. They're just great cars.
Excellent. Excellent stuff. I would happily accept a Corvette with none of the bells and whistles. Give me roll up windows and a rag top, and I'm happy. Um,
Amen. Amen, brother.
Richard, where's your next road trip going to be?
In just a few short days, I leave for California. Not a road trip. I'm going to fly there for the IMSA race at WeatherTech Laguna Seca. I do the Corvette racing program photography for Chevrolet. This is my 27th year photographing that program.
Wow.
I do
Cool.
Cadillacs racing photography since 2003. And after Laguna Seca, I may go to Watkins Glen for their first annual Corvette Festival. They're going to have a car show celebrating the fact that the idea for Corvette was actually born at Watkins Glen in 1951. And so I may do a book signing there actually with the Corvette 70-year history book. And at the end of the month, I leave for Le Mans for the 24 Hours of Le Mans, the most epic sports car race there is on this planet, and this will be my 24th, I believe, race
It's
there. I've been there. I think this will be my 38th or 39th or 40th trip there, counting the test days that precede the race. And look forward to that very much. It's crazy. It'll be extra crazy this year because it's the 100th anniversary of the race. So
yeah.
It's going to be absolutely crazy. They long ago actually sold out, and in all my years going there, that's never happened. I didn't even think it could happen because it's not a stadium race. Most of the 8+ mile circuit is still on public roads, and it goes through villages and hamlets. And though there is quite a lot of grandstand seating in the dedicated portion of the racetrack, endless numbers of fans just line the circuit, and they're all around. And I thought it's sort of like selling out a large city. And
Like,
normally, typically years, there are several 100,000 people there.
wow.
Watching the race this year is undoubtedly going to set the record for the number of spectators there. So I'm looking forward to that very much.
very cool. Very
Well,
cool.
I would have offered, I would have asked if you needed an assistant or anything.
Misty, I wish I had $1 for every time somebody asked me that question. And
I would have given you the dollar.
I deeply appreciate the privilege of what it is that I do for a living.
Yeah, that is
Never ever lose sight of the fact that I do something I love, and most people don't have that opportunity. So I understand where that question comes from.
Yeah, well, but unfortunately, on the second, we are leaving for our road trip. We're driving from the Netherlands to Italy, just south of Venice.
Good for you.
Yes, I love that drive because once we hit the Italian border, we hop off the highway and do back roads,
Ah, yes.
and it's the
Best way
best.
to do that. All right, we're running out of
Best.
time here rapidly. So,
Yep.
two more questions, Richard. What's the most fascinating thing you've seen on the road or in someone's garage? Which I think you also already answered that question
Oh,
too.
good
But
grief. Yeah, well, I many years ago found sort of by accident. I'll tie this into what I said earlier about Mr. McNeil came to me because he wanted to buy a car that I had that had a significant early race history. I found that car. I was actually interested in buying the engine that was in it. Didn't even occur to me that the car could be something special. But as soon as I started looking at that car, I realized that, in fact, it almost certainly was something very special. So that was one of 20 factory L88 cars. It was the Corvette that won its class at Sebring in 1967 and Daytona in 1968. And my wife and I were privileged to buy that car and restore it back to its initial Sebring configuration. So I would certainly cite that as one of the most fascinating things that I've ever seen when that garage door opened.
I can't imagine. Again, you are every answer here is like this man is living the dream, and I'm so happy we get to have this conversation today.
Right?
Yeah. All right, Richard, last question for you today. This is the silly thing we ask every guest. It's random and inconsequential for any reason. So, what I have too many here to choose from now. If you were arrested with no explanation, what would your friends and family assume you had done?
They'd be utterly shocked because I walk the straight and narrow. I always say, people say, "How are you doing?" And I say, "I'm staying out of trouble, constantly staying out of trouble." Then I add in the ones that claim they're always staying out of trouble are the ones that are in trouble. But I'm the exception to that. My life really is an open book. My number's in the phone book. I'm on the internet. Easy to find. So I really, really do stay out of trouble. If I was arrested, good grief. I guess some people might assume it was for exceeding the speed limit by a wide enough margin to go from a traffic offense to a criminal offense. But other than that, no, I'm not the guy out there knocking off liquor stores or waving guns or getting into road rage fights. I really do lead an even-keeled life. I try to sync my life with the rhythms of the universe and accept everybody and everything for who they are and what they are, flaws and faults alike. So I really do stay out of trouble. And if I was arrested, if it's not shocking to anybody out there listening to this who knows me, it should be. You're wrong. I'm not that guy.
Excellent stuff, Richard. Thank you for taking the time on your Sunday to be with us on the Thing About Cars podcast. If what's the name of the book? I had it up here in front of me. It's Corvette 70 Years.
It's called Corvette 70 Years, the One and Only, by Richard Prince. And if people are interested in a signed copy, they can contact me directly. I'm very happy to. I always say I write a book within a book. There's space in the front of the book where I really do enjoy personalizing it and thanking the people who have made my livelihood and my life possible by supporting the hobby. And so I'm very happy to do that. Otherwise, they can easily buy the book anywhere that books are sold, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, directly from the publisher, Quarto, or a lot of independent booksellers.
Right. And if they wanted to contact you to get that autograph, how do they do that?
Well, easy way is via email, richard@rprincephoto.com. They can go to my website, rprincephoto.com, and my phone number's there, my cell number's there, my address is there, and that email, richard@rprincephoto.com, is there. So they can contact me also through social media, Instagram, Facebook, and the website.
That is awesome. Richard, again, thank you for being our guest today. If you ever come through Atlanta or through the Netherlands, please let us know. We'd love to meet up for a cup of coffee or something a little stronger. Again,
Certainly.
thanks for being here with us today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you very much. Thanks for what you do to support this hobby that we all love so much.
It's fun stuff for sure.
Oh, it is. I mean, it's, totally makes my day. This is one of the highlights of my week.
It is awesome. I love the hardware, the machinery.